Welcome to Chapter 3. Here is where we're going to explore communicating with consent. So what does consent look like? What does it sound like? And how do we ask for it? So for this one, your first handout is this Consent 101. What does it look like? What does it sound like? And this is going to give you a space to kind of write in some of your own words, different aspects of what asking for or giving consent can look like and sound like. So make sure you have that printed out. You can jot down some ideas as we go. So before we get started on that, we want to think about how do we ask for consent? Some people sometimes have this concept, again, because we don't always see it in TV and movies all the time of people asking for consent like we should. Remember, we talked about how scripts are written off screen, so we might not see that part in the actual film or show itself, that it's weird or awkward to ask for consent in real life. In reality, it's not. When you're comfortable with a partner and you're comfortable with the fact that you're about to become physically intimate with a person, you really should have a certain level of comfort using your words with that person, talking about things with them. And to ask, hey, do you want to do such and such a thing, is totally normal. We ask each other things all the time in real life. Hey, can I borrow that pencil? And, hey, do you want to go to the movies? Hey, do you want to, help me out with this problem I have, right? So we actually ask for consent all the time in our real life. And this is just applying it to physical intimacy. If someone ever gets mad at you or thinks it's weird that you've asked for consent, that's a bit of a red flag, and that might not be someone that you want to actually be intimate with. Someone who's healthy and a safe person for you to be intimate with should actually like the fact that you ask them. It shows respect. It shows the fact that you care about what they want and don't want, and it shows that you're a healthy, respectful individual. Okay, so know that it's totally normal to ask, even if for some reason you may have a concept or your friends might have a concept that it's not. It's how things should be happening all the time. So how do we ask? There's sort of 3 or 4 main ways. The first one is to ask directly. Hey, do you want to go make out? Simple, easy, direct, gets the point across, and is really straightforward. The next one is make a suggestion and then sort of check in. Hey, would you think about, how do you feel about if we did this? Would that be okay with you? So you're kind of putting it out. There's a little softer of an approach, sort of saying, I've been thinking about doing this a lot. What do you think about that idea? So you're kind of putting it out there and then asking for sort of a check-in afterwards. The third way would be around asking your partner for directions. So saying maybe, what would you like to do tonight? I was hoping you might have an idea of what might be interesting or what might be, something you've thought about or a way you might want to be intimate together. So that's sort of taking your partner's lead and making sure you have the right to consent in return. If they suggest something you're not ready for, you can say, oh, that's not what I was thinking of. What about this? And now you're suggesting and checking in again. So the fourth kind of concept around asking in general is the fact that we should sort of be asking and reassuring our partners that we want their consent. So the fourth aspect is around, hey, this is what I was thinking. What do you think? Are you into that? And then saying, I want you to know that I want your true, honest opinion around what you're ready for and what you're comfortable with. Consent's really important to me. I really want to know what you're actually into. So make sure you feel comfortable to tell me yes, tell me no, whatever you want, you're into or not into. So adding that little bit of reassurance to a partner is another way to kind of ask for and make sure you're having consent on sort of the tail of one of those other 3 ways. So then once we sort of figured out how we're asking for consent, then we want to know, how do we know if we have it or not? So there's 2 main ways. There's verbal consent, so that's our words, or non-consent, of course. You can get yes or no's. And then there's nonverbal, so body language. Again, this can be affirmative or yes, or someone saying no. So those 2 categories are what we want to look at. Verbal consent, of course, affirmatively, is someone saying yes, sure, awesome, totally into that, please. Anything that's sort of enthusiastically affirming that we're into this. Now, verbal non-consent, so non-affirmative, someone saying no, consent is not given, not granted, do not pass, go, is of course no thank you, I'm not interested. And then we're also looking at anything that would be considered not an enthusiastic yes. So this is hesitating. I don't know, anything that sounds like that, that's in the no category. Silence is in the no category. Anything that's sort of hesitant or I don't know in general, all is taken as a no. We're not doing anything until we have that enthusiastic affirmative, and we're not pressuring or continuing to ask if someone's hesitating. We're letting them be open, and we're talking with them about what's going on for them. So then nonverbal consent, so body language. So an affirmative, again, is enthusiastic. Someone's present, so that might be sort of pulling in or grabbing. You might get some vocalization, some moaning or some groaning and some stuff that sounds sort of into it, some sighs. Body language is sort of shoulders facing in. Eye contact is good. Leaning towards each other is good. Not pulling back, right? Anything that's sort of pulling away or trying to get away in any of those capacities, that would be now moving into the other side, which is the nonverbal consent. So nonverbal non-consent. So we're saying these are no signs. So physical no signs is also, again, hesitation. Someone sort of pulling back, slowing down, sort of little pushes away, or sort of freezing up a little bit. We'll talk in a second about what that's about. Someone that's not sort of pressing or pushing back or engaging in the motion or the action of whatever it is that's happening, or anyone that feels like they might be a bit robotic. If you're not sure, again, we're going back to using our words. We're checking in. Hey, are you okay? Is this good? Are we on the same page? So those are the different kind of examples. Again, remembering there's lots more of these examples in the book itself and in the long course format of this course we're doing right now as well. Now, what we're kind of going to explore a little bit more right now is why that's so important around making sure we're not counting hesitation, silence, or robotic feelings as yes. So we're going to do a quick, very short version of the longer version of this is in the video itself and in the book. But I'm just going to use one of the 4 diagrams I usually use to teach this. So it's a little bit of, again, a broad strokes overview. And this should be in your handout. So please make sure you have this printed out. If you haven't, again, just hit pause, take a moment, make sure you have this out, because I'm going to point to a couple of things and it's easier to follow along if you also have it in front of you. So what we have here is the fact that the way our brains and bodies are put together, there's sort of 3 floors. I have them lit in green, yellow, and red here, saying green is good. That's where we want to be in order for consent to happen. Yellow is like slow down, stop, check in. And red's like a absolutely no go. Don't let this happen. So without getting too much into the mechanics, what we want to know is there's sort of 3 different parts of our brain, top, middle, and sort of back. Again, broad strokes. We're taking a few liberties here, but just sort of understanding that then there's also 3 parts of our nervous system. Again, the top part of our nervous system is a bunch of stuff that happens in the middle, and then the sort of bottom part of our lower gastrointestinal digestive stuff that happens in there. Now, each of these correspond to our levels of how safe we feel. When we feel safe with other people, we're in what I would call the top floor of the house. So the top floor is where we want consent to happen. We're in this outside part of our brain. That's our human mammal part of our brain. We're in this top part of our nervous system. All of our facial muscles are working. Everything up here is present and active, and our voice can go up and down. When all of that's happening, we know we're up here and we know we're in a safe space with our partners. That's why we need enthusiastic consent, because that starts to fade away when we get down into these parts of our body and brain. So evolutionarily, there's old stuff underneath the new stuff, and the old stuff gives us a whole range of ways that we can stay safe. And these you might have heard of. It's often called fight or flight. So when we don't feel safe, we're often in that second floor, fight or flight. And our body's sort of racing with adrenaline. We don't feel okay, and we start to try to do things to make this threatening situation go away. If we're ever in a moment of consent with a partner and one or the other partner starts to feel unsafe, they might start ending up in this floor. This floor and these reactions in these parts of the brain here, so this is sort of called the limbic system. It's sort of an inner part of the brain, and then the nervous system throughout most of your organs is through here, the yellow part. This is where our body's telling us, I'm not okay, I don't like this, we need this to be over. Now, it's not just fight or flight. There's a whole bunch of other things that happen in that floor. We also can get reactions called freeze and appease, tend and befriend. And these are various ways of de-escalating situations. We might get a freeze response, which is an activated startle response, where we kind of, if your partner freezes up or sort of looks a little stiff, that's a bad sign. We don't want to move forward with any consent stuff, any intimacy stuff if that's going on. The appease, so freeze and appease, sometimes our bodies evolutionarily are programmed to make a situation less scary by offering up something less scary than the big thing. So if someone's asking for sexual intercourse and we're really not into that, but we're kind of not sure we feel safe to say no to this person or what's going on, sometimes our bodies give us this signal that say well, just offer oral sex instead, for instance. So you might get that reaction in your body that tells you should do this other thing that's less scary, but you actually don't want to do that either. That's why the H of the hot spice is so important, that people feel safe to do that honest inventory of what they really want, not this sort of reaction of, let's do a less scary thing instead of the big thing, and maybe that'll make this go away. So watching in ourselves and in our partners for those type of reactions. And we're going to look at how to kind of work to overcome those as best we can, knowing that if we are truly in unsafe situations, whatever our bodies do and however we get through that, there is no shame, there's no blame or guilt in that. It is always the other person's responsibility to make sure they have true and honest consent from us. Okay? So we have freeze and appease, and then we have tend and befriend. Those are similar kind of things to the appease. This is where we might feel like we need to take care of or connect with the person that we're feeling a bit threatened by. So if we feel like we start being super nice to them or making sure that they're in our friend group, even if they've done something not okay to us, or in the moment of consent that we're not feeling okay with them, if we still feel like we kind of want to hang around them, seems counterintuitive, seems like we shouldn't want to do that, but sometimes our body tells us we should, sort of like the idea of keep your enemies close, so that you know what they're up to. Okay, so some of these can be sort of scary reactions. You get people pleasing, some of those reactions you might notice in yourself or in a partner. That's why we want to be so conscious if a partner starts to look hesitant, unsure. We want to immediately pull the pressure off. We want to reassure them that we want their true, honest opinion. We don't want them to do anything they're not comfortable with, because that's going to help people get back up to that sense of safety in their bodies and their brains, so that they actually feel like they can verbally say what they want. Language is also up here in this top floor, in that outside part of the brain, and this part of the verbal part in the nervous system up here in the body. So the further we get from that part, the harder it is to find words. So the further we get down here, we might not be as good with explaining why we don't want to do something or why this feels uncomfortable. And we need reassurance and from a partner to feel safe before usually we can think about it, process it, and explain ourselves later on. Now, if we're really feeling unsafe, and usually this is if we feel helpless or trapped, because then we can't fight or flight, then we go down one further, and this gets into an ancient part of our brain and body, which is more robotic. It's shut down, and we feel kind of numb and like we're not really ourselves in this part. So if we drop all the way down to this part in our brains and bodies, we might have this experience that we're not really there, or we're not really present, and our bodies can turn robotic, or they can even freeze altogether. So just because someone's not pushing back or yelling at you and saying, cut it out, like, I don't want to do this, they might really not be okay and not wanting to do this thing. So this is why it's so important we're looking for an enthusiastic, affirmative yes, not just waiting for a no. Because language, the further we get from all this stuff, the harder it is to find, and the more shut down our bodies can become. So we need to know what that looks like in a partner. We need to recognize it in ourselves if we start feeling unsafe. And then we'll look at what to do about that from there. Okay? So that's the Cole's notes of what happens in our brains and body. And then this sort of takes us to a putting it all together sheet that I have for you as well. This one here you should have in your handouts. And this one sort of looks at then, what do we do with that information? So we've looked at myths and influences, things that make us feel safe. How do we stay in that top floor all the time with our partners? And there's 4 different aspects to make sure we have all the elements of consent as best as we can. The first element is around legal safety. So the way we looked at capacity to consent, enthusiastic affirmative, and hot spice, is all that present before we even take the next idea of what comes next. The next thing is around emotional safety. How do we keep everyone in that top part of our floor, that top outside human mammal part of our brain, rather than our instinctive reactions to fight, flight, or freeze, or shut down? And this is by reassuring our partner that we do want to hear their true and honest response. We haven't guilted them. We haven't asked more than once. We haven't sort of done anything that makes them feel trapped, guilty, shameful for any of their responses. The next is around social safety. So social safety is asking to check in around those myths and influences. Power relationships that aren't necessarily illegal, like teacher-student, but if maybe one person is more experienced sexually, or is maybe considered more popular, or seems to have more social power or presence, that person is really watching out for the other person who's maybe a little less experienced, a little less confident, so that power differential is more equal. So checking in with ourselves, are we in that position or the other? How can we make this feel a little safer with our partner, that we truly can say our honest feelings if we want to do something or if we don't want to do something, and that we won't feel guilty or shameful afterwards, or we don't feel like we have to do something because of some myth or influence that we think is important that actually isn't, that we looked at in the first video. Now, the last one's around physical safety. So again, thinking things that make us feel trapped or helpless. When there's 2 bodies involved, one could be, in a certain position around the other that you can feel a little bit trapped or helpless. Doors are usually locked. There's not usually a lot of people around. Making sure your partner knows how to get home from where they are, that if they're relying on you for a ride to get wherever they need to go home, that you've reassured them that that's not going to change no matter what is happening on a physical level that evening or that day with that person. If there's someone who's larger or stronger, again, making sure the other person feels safe and in control of their body and what's happening to them at whatever kind of intimacy you're having. And just making sure things stay slow and steady, that it's not sort of jumping really fast from one thing to the next, that each person has time to think, notice how they're feeling. Are they actually into it? Are they actually feeling like they want to be there? Giving people time to acclimatize to each new thing that you might be doing if you are doing a few different things that day. So that physical safety is there for each person. So a couple different things to think about. Again, remembering this is a broad strokes. There's lots more examples in the book and in the long format, but just some beginning ideas to think about when you're either the one asking for or giving consent, to make sure that you're really, truly having a partner who feels safe and that they want to be there, and that you in return feel safe and that you want to be there. So from here, we're going to go then to the next chapter, chapter 4. We're going to look at sort of applying some of these skills. How do you sort of do more of these nuances in the moment, and a few more things beyond that. So thanks for tuning into chapter 3. I'll see you in chapter 4.